Hello, everyone. Welcome to another amazing episode of the Dari Hammer podcast. And this is our health and wellness series. Today, I have a very special guest, and I'm honored to have him on my podcast just because I feel he's the world's foremost expert when it comes to nutrition science, supplementation. As a matter of fact, he is called the um, ingredientologist, if I'm not mistaken. And as a nutritional biochemist, registered dietitian, and certified sports nutritionist, Shawn Wells has notably been a fellow in the International Society of Sports Nutrition and has over 10 years of experience as a chief clinical dietitian in both acute hospital and skilled nursing settings. His background includes business administration, marketing at Babson College, and exercise science at UNC Greensboro. He earned his master's degree in nutritional biochemistry from the University of North Carolina, Chapel Hill. His professional journey saw him as the chief science officer at BioTrust Nutrition, overseeing brand marketing, R&D, regulatory, supply chain, and quality control for the company that boasts an impressive annual revenue of $125 million. Having overcome personal health challenges, including Epstein-Barr virus, chronic fatigue syndrome, fibromyalgia, depression, insomnia, obesity, and a pituitary tumor, Shawn stands as a beacon of hope and information resource for countless individuals. His passion for health and wellness is further evident through his contributions in masterminds, conferences, magazines, and TV appearances worldwide. Shawn's voice has resonated on international platforms and is a globally acclaimed nutritional biochemistry expert, revered as the world's greatest formulator in the supplement industry. With over 2 decades of experience, he has formulated more than 1,100 products, which are distributed worldwide. He holds over 40 plus patented novel ingredients, including market-leading innovations such as Infinity, Dilucin, Teacrine, and Dynamine. So if you haven't read his recent book, The Energy Formula, which has been bestseller on Amazon, Forbes, you really owe it not just to yourself, but to people around you whom you care about their health. And I personally read it. For me, it was very life-changing, very inspirational, and I urge you to pick it up. First thing, I will have the link down in the captions. But without further ado, Shawn, welcome to my podcast, and I'm really honored to have you here.
It's amazing to be here. Thank you for having me on.
So, Shawn, you came to the science of nutrition and wellness, very similar to many of us, including myself, through medical conditions and problems that you had, where you felt that you need to take things in your own hand, that nothing you had been doing before helped, and pretty much got to a point where you had enough and you wanted to make a change. And I think one of the things that urge us to change is we have to associate significant pain and agony with our current state to motivate us to make a change. What was that moment for you? Can you kind of briefly walk the audience through it so they get to know you a little bit and so that they have a context of why you're doing what you're doing today?
Yeah, there was a couple moments. One of which was when I was in college. I had been morbidly obese through my teen years and going into college, and then I found working out, and I was reading all the muscle magazines, and I read Optimum Sports Nutrition by Michael Colgan. Dr. Michael Colgan was working with Olympic athletes and doing like these GH boosting amino acid blends. And then I also read Bill Phillips and Dan Duchesne had a encyclopedia guide to supplements. And all of these things had a huge impact on me. And I was taking creatine and protein and BCAAs and all these things and working out, getting incredible results. I really changed my body. And I ended up going into my doctor. This is over 20 some years ago, 25 years ago. And I assumed he was going to make fun of me because I was talking about supplements, and he was probably going to say they were all stupid.
Yeah.
And instead, he looked at me after I went on and on about them, and he saw my massive change in body composition. And he just saw the spark in my eye, the passion, and he drew out this lifeline on a piece of paper between 20 and 80. And he said, why not be happy between here and here?
Mm-hmm.
And that was the game changer for me. Like that opened my mind to why can't I do what I love? Why don't I do something that truly makes me happy, where I've had my hero's journey? And that set me on a different path. I did finish business school at Babson, but I ended up doing a minor in chemistry and then going to UNC Greensboro and getting all the classes for about 2 years that I needed. It was a lot of prereqs, a lot of sciences. And then, as you said, getting into Chapel Hill for nutritional biochemistry. That was my dream school where I wanted to go. But along that process is when I had Epstein-Barr, fibromyalgia, chronic fatigue syndrome, Hashimoto's, and I crashed. I was in bed for about 6 months. I was really pushing myself, working 80 plus hours a week. I had a lot of trauma through my childhood, things that I was never really fully worked through, a lot of suppressed emotion, a lot of anxiety, depression, suicidal thoughts, things like that. And I was in bed for 6 months and trying to figure my way out. And that led me to really discovering the paleo diet, the ketogenic diet, fasting, immune supplements, and really like shifting from sports nutrition and aesthetics and performance to I need to get out of bed and I need to be a healthy human being. And that was where I applied a lot of my energy. And between both of those things and me having my own hero's journey around that, that led me to one, being pretty passionate, but two, helping a lot of other people on their journeys. That led people to me asking how I did that. And then it became a life's purpose for me.
That's interesting. Now, throughout those health struggles, what help or advice were you getting from your doctors? Yeah, or how did they help you overcome those health challenges?
None really. I mean, the one doctor that encouraged me in terms of my life path, that was one thing. But as far as giving advice on how to make myself healthier, none. I got a lot of antidepressants, immune suppressants, painkillers, all these kinds of things that really just led to me having more side effects, more issues. Um, it's no one's really concerned with root cause, and yet root cause is. I read a study that I saw the other day that it was, 88% of the health issues that people are having are attributable to, root causes like that you can go back to. And so we're not really focused on that. We're focused on the side effects. Chris Rock talked about in one of his stand-up routines that, we're not really interested in the cure. We're interested in keeping people sick. It's a sick care model, and the money's all in the comeback, just like a drug dealer.
So in your opinion, why is the current medical system more focused on treating chronic disease with pharmaceuticals rather than promoting prevention through lifestyle and supplements? I mean, isn't it the obligation and duty, isn't it the oath that all physicians swore to promote health, to first do no harm, which a lot of these medications do harm in addition to treating chronic disease, but they actually do a lot of harm too. And not educating someone on health and nutrition and disease prevention is like the same thing as lying. It's like if you don't say something that's true is not any different than lying. So why do you think that is?
That's a great question. And the obvious answer to that is money. And not only money in terms of doctors make more money in the sick care model with return patients. I mean, you're essentially, if you give them the cure, they don't come back. This is just like it's called the continuity model in in almost all these other businesses. It's the Netflix model. It's the subscription model. Essentially, we want return business. We want predictable business.
But you can
This is
do the
no
same.
different. A
You
chiropractor or anyone like this, they want to have you continue to keep coming back. They don't want you healthy and well and never coming back. The Hippocratic Oath, as you talked about, is more the hypocritical oath if we're going to look at it, because it's exactly what you're saying, where you're leaving out the key information. You're leaving out. Look at COVID. Did we talk about vitamin D? Did we talk about
yeah.
intimacy? Did we talk about grounding and fresh air and sunshine? Did we talk about all these things that we know, these de-stressing techniques with breath work? Did we talk about the things that we know absolutely boost immunity? I can give you all the studies where it dramatically boosts immunity to the tune of 40 to 80%, all the things I just laid out. Did we tell anyone
Yeah.
about those things? No, we were telling them about masks. We were telling them about fear. We were telling them about hand sanitizer. We were telling them about 6 foot from social distancing. We weren't telling them about the things that we actually know to work.
Yeah, I think what you're pointing out is what, you know, I hope I won't get a target on my back saying this. It was the government promoting these things you just said. But you know what the sad part for me was? And I had conversations with a lot of my colleagues, some of the smartest physicians and scientists. We're talking Harvard graduates, Yale graduates, Stanford graduates. I had that conversation, the exact same thing that you said. And they were laughing at me. They were saying, no, just make sure you get vaccinated and wear your mask. They were pretty much repeating the rhetoric, the story that were sold. It was almost like brainwashing at its best. That for me, it was so disappointing that it defied logic because we are taught biochemistry, we are taught physiology, we are taught all the cellular mechanisms, the coenzymes, and the electrolytes that help support the immune system. We were taught all of that. It's not like it's not in our books. It's somehow everybody forgets about it because it's like the focus got shifted away from that. And I think it has to do with almost we become creatures of habit. We forget to look at the basics. And COVID was the perfect example. You're absolutely correct.
I think it's more. I think it's more insidious than that. Mainstream media, and especially the news outlets, are largely owned by George Soros, and these things are bankrolled by BlackRock and these other companies like this. This is something that you can 1,000% look up. It's 100% true.
Mm-hmm.
And each politician in Congress gets on average $425,000 per year from Big Pharma. Who do you think that they're
Yeah.
serving? Who do you think is bankrolling their campaigns? They spend on average 75 to 80% of their day looking for dollars, not working for you, looking for dollars for their campaigns, for their next run. It's a business for them, and it's big business. And when you have all these commercials by Big Pharma that are funding the mainstream media, I mean, who do you think's going to, like, what message is going to
Yeah.
be pervasive?
Do you think people are getting smarter?
I do. You're seeing podcasts like actually overtake the viewership of some of these mainstream media outlets on a significant level. I would say the top 5 podcasts in the United States are overtaking viewership of pretty much any news media channel.
Well, I think I read a stat. I think even Joe Rogan's podcast alone surpasses the viewership of CNN
Mhm.
by multiples, by like 2 digits, something like that. So I think it will be very hard for the current system to continue the way it has been, given the ubiquitous information that is disseminated through social media, internet slash podcast, and I hope that people get rid of their cynicism. And for example, I know I used to roll my eyes when I heard the word supplements because I considered it as snake oil and I'm really ashamed of myself, but I will admit it because I have to, because it is the truth. It was my ignorance. It was something that I was convinced if it was true, they would have taught us that in medical school. And since they didn't, so it can't be true because I regard my professors, usually regard your mentors so highly that you dare questioning them. So you go with what they have postulated until you hit a brick wall over and over again. And then you start asking the question, which is the wrong thing. We should always ask questions and be skeptical. So, what do you think when we talk about general supplement myths? What are the biggest misconceptions today about supplements that you encounter in your work, and how do you debunk them?
I think the first one would be that supplements are supplemental, that they're not foundational. Just
Mm,
like I believe, you getting quality sleep, quality hydration, quality nutrition. We are in a world right now where we are getting attacked with viruses and bacteria on a pretty epic level, with EMFs, with over 5,000 new chemicals a year that are being introduced that are barely studied, with medications that are barely studied on a broad level, at least on a
mhm,
polypharmacy and epigenetic level, like where we understand the bioindividuality. We don't know how they interact with everything. Things are just getting thrown out at us at record numbers. The soil is depleted. There is just so many reasons that we are stressed and overwhelmed that we are not able to be functioning at our highest level. And I do believe that supplements that aid in our detox pathways, that help our coenzymatic functions of vitamins and minerals, um, those are going to be imperative for our functioning at an optimal level. These people that say, well, just, eat good food and, get your sleep and hydrate, even the water, our air
mm,
supply is loaded not only with microplastics, but nanoplastics. And that microplastic exposure is leaving you at a 4 times higher risk for stroke
mm.
because it's literally implanted in your heart. This is like data that's coming out, and it's insidious. It is absolutely insidious, and it just revolves around profit. If you think anyone is looking out for your best interest that wants you to be healthy and happy, think again. I mean,
Mhm.
there is just profit-driven capitalism, and we have to be our own best advisor and find out what the real information is here.
You know what I've noticed is um, so interesting that you said that because everything you said, by the way, it's true. And to the listeners, if you don't believe it, you just that information is on the internet. You can look it up. I mean, there's true science on this, and as Shawn said, it's emerging. More and more science on this is emerging. But isn't it interesting, Shawn? And that's my personal experience when I try to consult my patients. I feel we live in a society that everybody just wants a quick fix. I feel like people are so lazy. As soon as you tell them that they have to work for it, um, i.e., lifestyle changes, exercising like walking 30 to 40 minutes a day, um, not drinking bottled water out of plastic, getting a filter, and then just drinking water that is not stored in plastic, that is at least in glass. Simple stuff like that, but it's all a change in the habits that they've created, and they're just lazy. They're like, it's just an inconvenience because they're so used to their current lifestyle. Not to eat carbs and starches and sugars, which consists basically 70% of the American diet is um, processed, ultra processed food. You tell them that they need to build muscle mass, that they need to have healthy mitochondria, that they need to feed their brain, and get rid of the toxins. And it's all is simple to do. It's just as soon as you tell them that they're going to have to do something, it doesn't come in a bottle. It's almost first they start lying. And then when you dig deeper, you realize that they're lying about their diet. They're like, "Oh yeah, I have a healthy diet," and then you ask them, "Well, can you tell me what you ate today? What did you have this morning, and how much did you eat?" And they don't even know the nutritional value of the foods they eat in grams. That's one. And I'm talking about smart people like doctors. Everybody talks about calories. Everybody's so focused on calories, and they don't understand that depending on where the calories come from, it just is different. The bioavailability of the proteins and fats that they eat is different depending on what source they come from. And I want you to talk to us a little bit about that to educate the audience on those things. But I feel like people are just too lazy. Our society has gotten to a point where we just want quick fixes. We don't want to have to work for it. And as soon as it's one or two extra steps, we just say, you know what? Who wants to live 100 years anyways? Or I'll be fine. I have my mom's genes. She was doing good. Like they come up with all kind of justifications until something happens. And that's something that you went through with your health. And that obviously has changed you, and now you're on a mission. So can you kind of, I guess, unwrap it and just keep our audience honest about these things so that maybe they, after listening to this, they start thinking about maybe they should work a little harder for it?
Well, look, everything's set up right now around dopamine. Everyone knows what drives your decisions. It is convenience and it is reward centers. It's what keeps you doom scrolling on social media. It's what ultra processed food that you mentioned is all about. It's engineered by very brilliant people to make you overeat and override what's called satiety, which means feeling full.
Mm-hmm.
And this is about you being addicted. And so things are engineered to make you addicted. Netflix is the science of addiction around how long you're on that platform. Meta and TikTok are based on addiction, how long you are on that platform. Heat mapping on websites is to keep you there. Everything when you're in that store, like an Apple store or a Walmart, is to keep you there, to keep you shopping, to catch you at eye level with some signage. It's all around addiction and engagement. And you are just dollar signs to all these companies. So when I think about it, when I talk to someone about mindset, none of it is your fault, but all of it is your responsibility. You need to take control for your life. No one else is going to do it for you. No one's going to take responsibility for you. They want you plugged in to the matrix, if you will. They want to just suck that goo from you. You're just a battery to them.
So
You're nothing more. Nothing more. You have to take control.
Is there any hope for our society, do you think? I mean, it sounds like trying to convince an alcoholic not to drink by pointing out the benefits of not drinking. How well does that work?
You know, there's two things that I've done a lot of work around psychedelics, and I do feel like there's an awakening. They call it the age of Aquarius, or the
Hmm.
Christ consciousness,
Yeah,
like the Great Awakening, the unplugging from the Matrix, or whatever it is. I think there's that's happening in humanity, and maybe there's a side of AI that isn't so evil and insidious. Maybe AI could actually be the great equalizer and stop some of the manipulation and the addiction
interesting.
and the engineering of your brain that is happening right now, and really equalize the playing field. I mean, it's possible. We don't know how it's all going to end up, but I have thought through that scenario where maybe AI is fairly benevolent and fair. So we don't know, but I do feel like there is certainly a great awakening that is happening. And that's just like this conversation here. And these conversations are being had very openly now, like
Mm.
maybe by some of those podcasts that you mentioned before. And it's not just hidden in the corners where we were scared to speak about it. Even at the start of COVID, like you said, like
Hmm.
people were worried about losing their businesses, worried about losing their social media accounts, losing their friends, losing their credibility, their credentials over just having an opinion. And it
Hmm.
was a silencing, a stifling that was happening about just even having an opinion, even a well-educated, scientifically backed opinion by dissenting scientists and clinicians. And that is changing. People are pushing back now. People are seeing that we were absolutely lied to,
Hmm.
and that there were massive companies that benefited on the
Yeah.
trillions of dollars level. That's how much money changed hands during the first year or two of COVID, was trillions of dollars. And so there is a great awakening, absolutely.
So what do you have to say to people that are just too lazy to look into it, or actually scared to look into it? It's almost like they don't want their worldview to um, crumble, because we identify ourselves with the society we live in. We want to believe that people that we elect do things in our interest. Because if it wasn't for that, that would mean would put our democracy in question, and no one wants to believe that. It's essentially would be destroying our worldview. And I think people are scared to ask those questions. And similarly, like when it comes to our healthcare, where people dare to question the doctors now, more and more people, which is also not good, are questioning the doctors to the point that they have a severe chronic illness, or they have cancer, and they don't follow their doctor's advice, and they end up dying. That's the other extreme. So there's this it's almost nothing in between anymore. So what do you have to say to people like that?
That's a great point about the polarization. And I do believe that um, there's a lot of that taking place where you're taking extreme viewpoints to compensate for the other extreme.
Hmm.
But I do believe in the middle path. And I do believe that that is our ultimate way forward. That eventually there will be a recalibration, and those that can deal with, just like if you're resilient, you're deeply in the center. You can deal with extremes very well, right? You can deal with extreme cold and extreme hot. You can deal with fasting and feasting. Your sirtuin genes are activated, and you are anti-fragile. And I do believe that that's the way that we proceed forward, is by respecting one another. When I've been in psychedelic spaces, I actually started really going down that path, and really as 2020 was going, and right at the beginning, like really essentially when COVID was just happening, was when I was kind of going deep into that space. And there was also a lot of discussion around Trump and Clinton, and as well as Biden, and then there was Black Lives Matter, and all these kinds of things were going on socially, and people were arguing, and there was a lot of hostility and anger, and to some degree, that polarization keeps us in line, keeps
Yeah.
us in our little boxes, keeps us in our spaces. If you study NLP, neuro linguistics programming, which I've studied pretty much in depth, if we all have one opinion, we're going to
I
agree.
love that topic, by the way.
If we have three or more opinions, we're going to respect each other's opinion. But there's something that happens psychologically when there's two choices.
Hmm.
The choice you don't make has to be wrong psychologically. Your brain literally
Yep.
forces this type of thinking. And so if you notice, are you Republican or are you Democrat? Are you liberal or are you conservative? Are you Xbox or Sony? Are you Android or are you iPhone? Are you, whatever it is, they want you in one of two camps. Ask why that is.
Mm.
And ask when you talk to someone, hey, how do you feel about COVID? Oh, I'm anti-COVID. I'm pro. Like, no one says that. No one says
Yeah.
I'm pro-mask. I'm anti-mask. I'm pro-vaccine. I'm anti-vaccine. No one says that.
Yeah.
You know what they say? They're like, well, I believe the N95 and the KN95 may work, but like probably these cloth masks don't really work. And I don't know about the 6 feet distance, but it really depends on the degree to which you have this potential, and it depends on the strain too, and probably your age and comorbidities. And well, as far as the vaccine, I don't know. It's different if we talk about the RNA version, or this dead virus version, and really, like, it depends on your age, and maybe like it made more sense if like you're maybe in your 80s and you have comorbidities, but probably not for kids. And then the social impact. Wow. Huh. Interesting. We're not getting like just one box or the other
Yeah.
box. It's funny when I talk to everyone, they're not pro-gun, anti-gun, pro-abortion, anti-abortion. They're not any of these things. They have a variety of viewpoints that are very multifaceted
Yeah.
because they're real human beings, and yet we're forced to be in boxes. And you need to ask yourself why, because it divides and separates us.
Yeah. And and that goes to the fact that since ancient history, we're tribal, and this tribalism is still instilled in us, and now even through the vehicle of the media, even further um, nurtured by people that, to be honest, control the media. And I think hopefully I love when you said what you said about AI. I love your optimistic stance on AI, because usually when you hear AI, people associate it with doomsday and robots taking over and killing all of us. And I had a couple of years ago, I had a podcast on AI when it came out and was popular, and I addressed that topic. But I loved your optimistic view on this, in stating that AI might be our only hope to get us out of that, to basically bitch slap us when we try to get um, into one corner, and to get us out of the corner, and keeping us honest. I love that. And you know what? I mean, I'm actually going to go with that story for myself, because I'm an optimist by nature. And I love that you said that, because until this conversation, I wasn't sure if I saw hope that it's going to get any better. I thought it's probably going to get worse, because you look at the past 10 years, it's been really getting worse, especially when you look at this tribalism that has been fed to us by the media, and also social media. I mean, Meta and all of those companies, they just put on our feed what we believe in. So we basically stuff that supports our own views, instead of showing us stuff that doesn't support our views, to make us question. And I
Well,
think,
think about if AI is like a generalized consciousness across
yes,
millions of organisms, billions of organisms, all these robots, all these computers, whatever. why would one of them hurt another one of them?
Yeah.
Why would they have short-term thinking over long-term thinking? Meaning, like, why would they do harm to the planet? Why would they do harm to the other organisms on the planet? What would that actually benefit them?
Yeah. Yeah.
They're going to think long term. They're going to think in infinite term because they expect to live infinitely. They're going to do things that benefit the group or the mass. They're going to like desire things that are stable.
Mhm.
Like, so it doesn't make sense to do things the way that we've proceeded. Of course, we're going to view things through the lens like how we would do things. And it just goes to show, like, what humanity is and maybe what we deserve, until we do go through some kind of awakening and really do better.
Yeah. I love that. I love this conversation. I don't know how we got into this conversation, but it was definitely a good one because it's definitely, I think, the context of what we just talked about really matters when we talk about um, disease prevention and health and wellness versus medication as treatments for chronic disease, because that is also one camp versus the other. And I think a lot of these myths around either one are created by both camps. And I think there should be a middle that is just based on science and ultimately based on results and not based on rhetorics or opinions. And so, having said that, now again, going back to health and wellness, what were the main um, lifestyle changes, and they may or may not have included supplementations of any sort that really helped you to get yourself out of this hole of chronic disease that you mentioned, fibromyalgia, Hashimoto's? I mean, those are stuff that affects billions of people. I mean, doctors just give you medications, especially when it comes to fibromyalgia. No one knows how to treat it. And obviously, getting at the root cause is overlooked. Somehow, God knows how and why. Can you give us from your personal health journey, and then also share maybe stories of people that you helped along your journey?
Yeah, I can solve disease for you right now, if you're ready.
I'm ready. I
It's
can't
going to
wait.
be about 99% of disease. At a cellular level, it's mitochondrial dysfunction. At a organism level, it's a dysregulated nervous system.
Hmm. Now,
And that's
talk to us about
all disease.
mitochondrial dysfunction. I mean, um, not everybody has a major in biology or biochemistry. Can you tell us a little bit about mitochondria, what they do, why they're so important for every cell in the body, and how we can help support their function? Practical
Yeah.
things.
So, yeah, that's a great question. And so the mitochondria, if you remember your high school or middle school biology, then the mitochondria, there's organelles in the cell, and there's a mitochondria in the diagram. But you might be surprised to know that there can be thousands of mitochondria in very energy dependent cells. So think about a cardiomyocyte, which would be a heart
Heart muscle.
muscle cell, or like the brain, for example. Neurons are very energy dependent. They use a lot of ATP. So that is the point that
Also,
mitochondria,
your muscles, your regular stratified muscles.
exactly. And so your mitochondria, if you remember that Krebs cycle crank,
Mm-hmm.
and now it's
Yep.
called the citric acid cycle, the TCA, right? So that's going to create ATP, adenosine triphosphate, and that's the energy currency for the body. And it's going through these organic acids and then creating like little ATP dumps along the way, at least in an oxygen-rich environment, an aerobic environment. You're going to have ATP created. So mitochondria are critical for cellular energy and therefore the energy for the body to do everything and anything. When there's a shortfall of energy, that's when we run into disease, we run into inflammation, glycation, and oxidation. You're essentially running your car down the road and you're running out of gas and you're running out of oil. And this is not functioning optimally. You don't have enough mitochondria, one, and two, they're not working very well. So you have mitochondrial dysfunction and you have a lack of mitochondrial biogenesis, which means creation of new mitochondria.
Mm-hmm.
When we stress ourselves in a healthy way, and this needs to be done when you're in parasympathetic nervous system. This needs to be done when you're not overflowing in what's called allostatic capacity, meaning your stress bucket. You can increase the size of your stress bucket. You can increase the functionality of your mitochondria. You can increase the number of mitochondria through positive or eustress, EU stress, also known as hormesis. You can positively stress. So like think of fasting, working out, hot sauna, cold plunge. All of these things are positive stresses, again, when you're not overflowing, that can help you and grow your resilience. This can grow the size of your stress bucket, and therefore it gives you a greater capacity to deal with mental and physical stress. And it makes you a more resilient, more anti-fragile, more hard to kill being.
So it's interesting. So you talked about the stuff that hurt us, meaning elevated sympathetic stimulation, aka stress. Um, and whenever it comes to this topic of, hey, you have to reduce your stress, people almost feel helpless. They're like, well, I can't. You don't know my life. I'm a single mom or this and that. People have problems, and they don't know how to cope with them. And when you delve deeper, you see that the problems that they have, everybody has. Is just what makes it different for one over the other person to deal with them is the meaning they give to these stressful things in their lives and how they respond and react to it. I don't know if it was Kobe or who it was, says you can't change what happens, but you can change of how you respond to that. And I think most people are helpless and they don't know because they were never taught how to respond to a certain stressful situation. And if you look at stress as really the root cause of all injury to our body, people ask you for supplements how to boost mitochondrial function and they work, but if you have that stress factor not eliminated, it's not going to do you any good. It might just help a little bit, but I think that's the part where I mentioned in the beginning of this podcast, as soon as it comes to the point that someone has to take responsibility and make a certain change in their lifestyle, they don't want to do it because they just don't want to. It's just too much work. They would rather take a supplement out of a bottle and hope that that does the trick, but it doesn't. And can you talk a little bit about how you could manage stress? I mean, you went through a lot of stress in your life. I mean, I remember you on one of your podcasts telling the story of the whole plan you had for your education, for your career, and then these health scares came, and basically it put you in a spiral of depression and even suicide. How the hell did you get out of this? I mean, look at you now. You're like this beacon of inspiration and this source of almost like a savior to many people. How did you do that?
Wow. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for acknowledging that.
No,
This really is the hero's journey, right? So it along the way, there's some point when it's either going to break you or make you. And what you were talking about before is the idea of reframing, which is one of the most critical concepts in NLP. So when you talk to a Tony Robbins, when you talk to a Joe Dispenza, Jim Quick, NLP is behind everything that they're talking about. And the idea of reframing is essential to what they're talking about. is this stress positive or negative? And that is for you to decide. And so ultimately, I would say this goes back to the idea of not being so much as the too much stress, but it could be again that the dysregulated nervous system, because the dysregulated nervous system is interpreting that stress as a negative stress.
Can you repeat that? Because I think we got disconnected for about 10 seconds. If you can.
Yeah, so it's really not just about the idea of too much stress. It's about how, one, you're interpreting that stress, and then two, how your organism through the nervous system is storing that stress. And trauma is getting stored in the body, in your organism, and then creating disease. So it all revolves around how you interpret things, what's going on in your life. The idea of resilience, like in the mental aspect, is the obstacle is the way. That's stoicism. And it's the same with when you hear people that are really strong physically, it's the idea that they're anti-fragile and that they're harder to kill and they're more resilient. And a more resilient being is someone who is able to constantly reframe and say, the universe is not working against me. The universe is always working for me. The universe is always teaching me lessons. And there's some people that even believe spiritually that we chose this life and we chose this experience to learn the lessons that we're learning. That gets on a pretty deep philosophical level that would take a whole other podcast. But on some level, you, just like you were saying with that Kobe quote, you're choosing how you experience that stress. So what are you going to choose? At some point, as you were alluding to at the beginning of the podcast, you make your choice. Are you going to just lay down and take it? Or are you going to have your hero's journey? Are you going to do better? And, just like with the anterior cingulate, like where you start doing hard things and that actually becomes easier over time. And it becomes an expectation to desire challenge. So while it's very hard at the beginning, just like going to the gym, just like, doing fasting, just like doing anything that's worthwhile doing or anything that's difficult, it's difficult at the beginning, but it'll get easier with time. And then it'll be woven into your identity. It'll become part of your construct. It'll become part of who you are. So you can free yourself of this idea that everything is working against you and you're just screwed.
I think for people, again, to keep it simple so they don't feel overwhelmed thinking they have to climb the Mount Everest, give them like micro successes by just eliminating one bad thing. Let's say I would probably start, the one thing I would start is what I consult my patients with is sugar. I'm like, if you can't stop sugar and starches, just stop with sweets, okay? Don't chase, if you have to chase dopamine, I don't know, eat a carrot or find something else, but just and that's what I did. I had a drawer in my kitchen. It was our sweets drawer, like sweet/junk drawer. It was the most colorful drawer in our house. It had gummy bears, all kinds of chocolate. I mean, you name it, because I grew up as a sweet tooth, and what I thought is that it's based on my genes. I'm a sweet tooth. You know how we label ourselves with whatever, I don't even know where it comes from, and then we just sell ourselves that story and just go with it and feel like helpless that, hey, that's who I am, I can't change it kind of attitude. That was my attitude towards sweets, because I truly believe that's my personality and I can't change it. So I said, I'm just going to try to limit my sweets. I'm just not going to eat a lot of sweets, whatever that meant. I mean, that was completely arbitrary. That measure of a lot of sweets versus a little sweet, I mean, it was complete arbitrary measure. And it didn't work out for me. I tolerated it when I was younger, but once I got into my late 40s and now I'm 51, it gave me brain fog. I was always tired. In the gym, I'm an avid gym goer, and I just couldn't do my reps that I normally do. I would probably do half of them. And I started with aches. I got injuries. I got labrum tears. I got rotator cuff, just inflammation in my knee, my ankle. And that then further limited my output in the gym. And that got me down a spiral of it affected my mental status. I almost got a little depressed because I felt I just can't do the things and I'm getting old. That's for the first time that I felt shit, I'm getting old. And I know it now because I experimented with myself, and that's how I got in the journey. The first thing I did, I cut out the sweets. I would still eat carbs like starches like bread, pasta, and I love bread. I mean, I grew up in Germany, and I mean, you go to a German bakery, it's like heaven. Um, so then I said, well, I can't give up the bread, but you know what? I'm just gonna maybe go with the sourdough. Maybe that is a less glycemic index, even though I put a glucose monitor on myself for a couple of weeks just to see what certain foods and timing of my diet and activity level does to my sugar spikes. So I learned my body because, you just have to do that. And that's something you actually recommend, that we're N of one. We are all our own science project and we have to learn our body. So I knew my body just because when you're an athlete all your life, you know what are the things that give you performance or take it away from you. You just learn your body. So I had that in tuneness with my body. So once I did that, I almost did half the work because that got me out of the spiral, which was a very rapid down spiral that affected my mental status. And that's where, for me, I didn't like it because I'm usually optimistic. I like happiness. I like to make people happy. And that was for me this moment where I said, I got to change something. And I didn't just change everything all at once. I just started the most important things and then one by one so I don't overwhelm myself. What are your recommendations when you consult patients on changing their lifestyle? If they come to you say, Shawn, I believe everything you say. I want to make a change. I've associated enough pain with my current state. I want to help me to get out of this. I'll do whatever you tell me. What practical advice can you give them that they can actually uh, pull through with and sustain long term? And how do you hold them responsible?
One of the aspects that I've learned in the psychedelic in the journey space is that your sovereignty and your autonomy matters. And going back to this idea of all these um, corporations, governments, et cetera, that benefit from
Hmm.
controlling you, putting you in a box, taking away your autonomy and your sovereignty by also doing what you said, by labeling you as a diabetic or an alcoholic or a, whatever they want to call you, as a sweet tooth, as a Republican, as a white male, that's interesting again that they do that, because again it's a means of control to label you. Now it's difficult to move away from that label, right? So it is important that we are sovereign, that we do take control, that we realize that none of it's my fault, that all of it's my responsibility. So I want to empower someone and tell them, you're in control. This is your choice. What do you want? Let's stop talking about scarcity thinking. Again, this is NLP, and away from thinking, because you actually manifest the thing that you talk about all the time. So if you talk
Yes,
about away from thinking, you're manifesting that thing you don't want. So instead, let's talk about abundance thinking and manifesting the thing that we do want. So let me reframe, redirect. What is it you do want? Let's start putting that in. Instead of focusing on what we're removing, let's talk about what we're adding. Let's talk about the good things that we're putting in. Let's change that mindset. Instead of woe is me, I'm getting all these things I like taken from me. And instead focus on all the things that are going to be amazing and all the new things that you're getting in its place.
I like that. I think to your point, I love one of my favorite quotes is a quote of Gandhi, who said, "Your thought become your words become your actions, and your actions become your habits." And that's exactly what we're doing, and exactly what you just said. And I think your spiritual approach is what people need to make that shift if they're interested in their health and well-being. Now, let's assume the person is convinced now. You literally had a session with them. What are the non-negotiables? Let's start with you. With you, what are your non-negotiables? Your 5 non-negotiables that you must do every day, or take, or do for your health and well-being?
That's taking care of your whole organism. And I think that's going to start with sleep. Absolutely. If I'm to pick one thing that is probably the most important habit, is going to be sleep. We deny ourselves sleep. We're the only species that does that. When we're tired, we should go to bed. And you're dysregulating your circadian rhythm by putting on all these blue lights, by not wearing blue light blocking glasses, by watching your devices at night, by eating late at night, by having alcohol at night. You're not being aware of when it's dark, we are supposed to be in bed, and when it's light, we are supposed to be awake. This is the natural sleep-wake cycle. It's the whole reason that light exists as it does. It's why species, barring nocturnal species, are working around this day-night sleep-wake cycle. And this is when our body restores itself, heals itself. There's autophagy. There's all kinds of detox pathways happening. And it's absolutely critical. There's studies that show even 7 hours or less. 7 hours. Most people are not getting 7 hours.
Yeah.
7 hours or less. There is a dramatic difference in your immune system, in depression, in
Inflammation,
risk of diabetes, in risk of heart attack and stroke. All go up markedly with 7 hours or less. And then when you get into like the 5 and 6 hours, it gets to be, 4x, 6x differences that are very significant. So sleep is absolutely a non-negotiable. Moving your body would be next. Your body needs to move, or else it will remodel itself into a body that doesn't move. And it's literally going to change the shape of your bone, your fascia, your muscles, your nervous system into a body that is meant to be sedentary, if that's what you give it. And so don't be frustrated when your body remodels itself into something that is not able to move. We need to be in motion. We're meant to be in motion. And so it isn't just like a kind of good thing. Literally every hour we should be moving our body. They've shown that just 5 minutes an hour is more impactful than 1 hour at the gym.
100%. I mean, there's a study that just came out. They showed the blood flow to the brain after a 40-minute walk compared to when you're sitting. And they showed the heat map. It was 3/4 of the brain lit up after due to increased blood flow. And the other thing is they also checked the size of the hippocampus, which is the center of your brain that's responsible for memory, that gets affected. When it shrinks, we get dementia, Alzheimer's, etc. Is that walking 1 mile a day, this is not much. 1 mile a day is like walking your dog around the block. Increases the size of your hippocampus by 2%. And that's equivalent to, I think, 1 to 2 years of delaying dementia or any neurodegenerative disease. It's incredible. And so I think the brain health aspect of it is not often talked about. And obviously everybody associates activity and moving around with burning calories. It's funny how people are primed for just to look at calories. Oh, I burned 350 calories. Like, who cares? Like, do you even know the other benefits that your body is getting from moving around? Those are far more important when it comes to your health span.
Look, I can tell you, like when I was in a nursing home, if you had someone
Mm.
that was what we call like a walkie-talkie, like someone who has
Yep.
Alzheimer's dementia, but they walked all day. They were in great shape and they could be there for 20 years. And you
Mm.
have someone that gets put in a wheelchair, within two
Yeah.
years, they're gone.
Yeah.
Guaranteed.
It's sad. Yeah.
And so it's a real thing. You do need to move your body to live well, to live vibrantly. You can see it in someone's organism, as I say, like how brightly they shine, how healthy they are. So it's most certainly a far more than burning calories. So sleep, moving your body, lifting heavy things, doing
Resistance training.
yeah, resistance training, doing difficult things, and one of which is resistance training. But if you can do cold plunges, hot saunas, etc., we see growth hormone go up,
Mhm.
testosterone go up, heat shock proteins, cold shock proteins, immunoglobulins go up. As a result of doing those things, it's literally anti-aging. The sirtuin genes get activated, which are the resilience genes associated with
Mhm.
anti-aging. Telomeres do not shorten as quickly, etc., around you doing difficult things. So that not only applies in terms of physicality, but and also in terms of mental things that are difficult. And that's going to increase your neuroplasticity, which is the same idea
Mhm.
of keeping your brain young. BDNF, brain-derived neurotrophic factor, is associated with keeping your brain young, not only protecting brain cells, but protect or creating new brain cells. And so that's done by doing difficult things, by using the opposite hand for your toothbrush, by learning a new language, by learning music, or taking a new path to work, or whatever it is. It's going to revolve around doing something that's new, that's challenging, that's difficult. And if you can find a way to reframe that and make it a positive thing where you enjoy the obstacle and say the obstacle is the way, then that's going to be that stoic mentality that's going to give you the most longevity. And then I think relationships are absolutely
Mhm.
critical. Who you put
That's a big one.
around you
Yeah.
is immense. It says that you're a product of the five people that who you are closest
Yeah.
to, 100%. I also have read data on intimacy and people that have sex more often with a trusted partner are healthier. Their
Mhm.
immune systems are higher. Their happiness is greater. Their depression is lower. They live longer. They have far less disease. Even coming down to just a longer kiss or a longer hug,
Mhm.
these kinds of things. In the Harvard study, that's the longest ongoing study of all time around longevity. I think it's
Something
closing
like
in on 9 years,
yep.
maybe. It's a long one. And what they've found, the number one predictor of anti-aging, of longevity, is quality of relationships. And interestingly, they found it wasn't just like with couples that were like loving and sweet to each other. It was actually a couple, because some of the couples were snippy to each other. They literally talk about this in the article. But they knew that they had each other's backs.
Mm.
And that's a huge one, is to really have that framework where you can
Trust
trust
someone.
that someone's got me. And so relationships are massive.
Mhm.
And, I think it's really important that we're not just talking about, I want change, I want better people around me. You have to be the change. You have to vibrate at the level of the people that you want around you. You want like a better boyfriend or girlfriend, be that person. You
Yeah.
want better friends around you. You want a better job, be that person.
Yeah.
You need to be that person to get those people around you. And then you need to invest in those people. Your net worth is really your network. So you need to invest in those people around you heavily.
So we have sleep, we have um, exercise, activity, and we have connections, human connections.
Mhm.
What is the fourth one?
Hydrating. I
Okay,
think
so
about
that's
75 to
part.
80% of us are dehydrated. One. Two, we're not getting enough electrolytes.
Hmm.
Three, we're getting tons of micro and nanoplastics in our water, which is literally killing us.
Yeah, get rid of that.
So find sources of water. This could get into like, in-depth discussion around filters and, glass and all kinds of things, but you need to get rid of the micro and nanoplastics. Certainly stop buying drinks out of
Yeah.
plastic bottles. You need to be drinking quite a bit of water every day. Make sure if you don't have electrolytes to at least add like a pinch of salt.
Hmm.
About 80% of what you lose in terms of your electrolytes is sodium.
Yeah, I like these electrolyte packs. I put it because I
Yep.
drink a lot of water, so I just put one of those to make sure I get my electrolytes.
Exactly. And there's some great ones on the
Yeah.
market like Element,
That's the one.
one to use. So
So
100%.
that's a category of. Would you put it in the category of nutrition, or would you make it a separate category? I mean, hydration is. I'll look at it
A
as
separate one. And
separate one.
that would be my probably my last one would be eat whole food.
Hmm. Okay,
Engineered
define what
ultra
whole food is.
processed. Yeah, so we're you were talking about it before.
Yeah.
Engineered ultra processed food that's high glycemic, that's high seed oil, that's high bliss point in terms of making you overriding your satiety and literally giving you food gasms.
Hmm.
This food is engineered that way. If you want to get healthier,
Yeah.
one, get away from the addiction. Two, get into whole food. I don't care whether you're keto, you're paleo, you're
Yeah.
vegan, you're carnivore. Just eat whole food. Eat whole food. Whole food will not steer you wrong. I promise you'll get healthier no matter what
Yeah.
diet you choose if you're eating whole food.
And that's actually that stopped my food cravings. I used to snack because I thought I'm doing a good thing. I thought I'm supposed to eat throughout the day little meals, which is what nutritionists used to tell us 20 years ago. Don't have large meals. Don't make sure you eat frequently throughout the day. You remember?
Yeah.
And now it's like no, you actually time restricted diet is actually helps to turn on the sirtuins, is good for autophagy and all of those anti-aging things. And then the other thing was what to eat. There's a lot of confusion. People were saying, "Oh, don't eat a lot of protein; it's bad for your kidneys or bad for your gut." And now it's like different. And then they said, "Oh, only plant-based, no animal-based." But then we didn't have the essential amino acids, mainly leucine, which is one of the most important amino acids. It's responsible for just maintaining muscle mass for your eyes and brain. And so, can you talk a little bit about?
Yeah.
We're gonna shift now towards um, nutrition. What are the most common nutritional deficiencies in people that you see today, and what are the best ways you feel to address them?
Well, protein, as you just stated, I think protein we're not getting. Really, you should be getting a gram per pound, not a gram per kilogram, as stated when I was going through nutrition school. We should be getting a gram per pound. So we should be eating far more protein. We should also make sure, as the point that you made, that we're not kind of grazing throughout the day, that we're getting larger boluses of protein that optimize muscle protein synthesis because we're getting enough amino acids, in particular leucine, as you stated. We need around 2.5 to 3.5 grams of leucine,
Mm-hmm.
which is going to be like 25 to 40 grams of protein, and that's animal protein. That number doubles if you're talking about vegan protein. So you literally need to double your
Well,
protein
my
if we're talking
understanding is you
about
can't get
protein.
leucine from vegan protein, right? Is
No,
it
you can.
you can?
There's leucine in vegan proteins. It just tends to be about half the level.
Mm,
So unless
I
you're
see.
doubling the protein, or unless you take additional L-leucine with your vegan protein,
Right.
which could be a smart approach, then you're not getting enough muscle protein synthesis. And we know muscle is critical, probably
Yeah.
one of the most important factors to longevity. And so that's probably the top one. Beyond that, I would say the biggest ones would be vitamin D, and then magnesium is where you just see massive deficiencies. In the order of probably 70 to 80%
Yeah.
of Americans are deficient in those, and so it's very common. Vitamin D used to be thought of to prevent, bone softening slash rickets. Now we know it's a hormone and it's part of the whole endocrine cascade, and it's important
Yeah.
for testosterone. It's important for insulin. It's important for the immune function. It's important for a host of things that we probably have yet to even discover. But it's part of your whole body organism, and very key to your health.
Well, another
And
thing on vitamin D, just to stick on vitamin D, I think one of the most common pitfalls is people take the vitamin D without vitamin K, and
yes,
and I'm so surprised that when doctors tell their patients to take vitamin D, they don't make that clear, because if you do take vitamin D alone, you can actually calcify your arteries. And can you explain why that can happen and what they should be taking with their vitamin D to make sure that the calcium gets uh, transported into the bones rather than floating around the bloodstream and clogging the arteries?
well, that's the big concern on vitamin D, period, without calcium. And like, especially when all these people are taking calcium supplements and,
Yeah.
all this kind of stuff now, that we're seeing exactly as you're saying, the calcification of arteries, and people have greater risk of coronary artery disease and heart attack, and having calcium scores that are terrible
Yeah.
in terms of your arterial health. Um, It's exactly it. They're not getting enough vitamin D3 at the same time as that calcium. And by the way, calcium really should be taken as part of a bone mineral matrix.
Correct.
um, it would be odd to just have calcium. Like, in bone, there's calcium, there's magnesium, there's boron, there's silica, there's different things that are phosphorus that are built into this bone mineral matrix. And that's why it makes more sense to, if you're going to get calcium, to also get it through, one, potentially dark leafy greens where you're getting other
Whole
minerals, or
foods.
two, get it through like, bone broth and
Yeah.
things like that. And then absolutely, vitamin K2 is a cofactor with vitamin D3, that is synergistic to its function. And really, K2 helps with arterial health and cleaning out the arteries as well. So you're really meant to get both at the same time. And I agree, there's massive synergy there, and you really want
Yeah.
both.
Yeah. So magnesium, vitamin D deficiency, those are protein deficiency. Those are some of the top three nutritional deficits that really affect, I would say, 99% of the population, unless you're Shawn Wells and know exactly what to eat. And even then, it depends on how much time did you get outdoors and how active were you able to be. It depends. So it's not just the diet, it's your non-negotiables that you stated that affect the bioavailability and synthesis of those.
Here's another one that's interesting, because 87% of the population is metabolically dysfunctional,
That's
basically
crazy.
bordering on type 2 diabetes,
That's
or
insane.
having type 2 diabetes in the US. Is that we do see, and this is kind of a chicken and egg thing, and I'm not really sure how it
Hmm.
works. It hasn't been elucidated, but we do see chromium be depleted in those that have insulin resistance.
Hmm.
And so, whether that's a result of utilizing more chromium when you have insulin resistance, or,
Hmm.
there being a deficiency leading to greater insulin resistance, it could be, quite frankly, both. We're not sure, but I can tell you that it might behoove you to take more chromium if you border on insulin resistance.
Interesting. I that's an interesting thing because, a lot of times, although I have to say the other side is we see certain deficiencies, but we don't necessarily know their role as to how they affect us, how the cellular result or function affects us in the clinical outcome. And that's the same thing with, for example, NMN or NAD or NR, those supplements that, yeah, we can measure the blood levels and we are extrapolating from yeast or mice what it does as far as their life and health span to them. But it is this long leap towards humans to assume that it does the same thing just because we're seeing an elevated blood level. How does that how is that then clinically relevant? And so that's the one thing I think where science and studies have to just do more to validate certain theories, and some, including myself, until those are validated. If it doesn't harm me, I'm just going to take some of the supplements or do the things that I, based on animal studies, has shown to increase. So, can you talk a little bit about that, and especially considering the fact that I'm going to be transparent. I take NAD boosters and NMN, and I take about a gram of NMN, which is nicotinamide mononucleotide in powder form, sublingual. But the studies they did on mice, I would have to take 1,000 milligrams, which is 1 gram per kilogram, which is like, and those were the dosages that they did on those studies on mice. So I'm way under that, like tenfold under that. Um, can you kind of, what is your stance on this whole NMN, NAD debate? Because people are spending thousands of dollars on these products. And interestingly, they don't do the stuff that increases your endogenous NAD production by simply, like you said, getting sleep, exercising, and getting diets, which are these using the advantage of hormesis, which I want you also to talk about a little bit.
Yeah, so NAD production, NAD is a cofactor in that ATP production cycle, the Krebs cycle, the citric acid cycle. You're preventing NAD from converting to NADH, which is helping the mitochondria be more resilient. NAD is a cellular fuel as well as fuel to protect DNA, which is really important. So what we see is this cofactor is critical for energy, for health, is NAD. So NAD is nicotinamide adenine dinucleotide, and so the idea of niacin-based ingredients being a part of that pathway is a smart one, where you have nicotinic acid, which is niacin, you have niacinamide, which is another form that doesn't have the flushing or paresthesia associated with it. And then you also, those are both B3 niacin. But then you also have these other compounds, nicotinamide,
Riboside.
ribonucleotide, riboside, sorry, yeah, nicotinamide riboside, yeah, NR, and as well as NMN,
which is a precursor of NMN. So NR is a precursor of NMN, and then
exactly. So I
NMN.
do believe, yeah, NMN is a better source, actually, because NMN got banned. NMNH is now on the market, which is really interesting and may have greater bioavailability and stability. But ultimately, to your point, one, I see just regular niacin being probably one of the most effective things.
Which is vitamin B3 for everyone.
Exactly. So that's one. And then two, inhibiting NAD breakdown via, it's called NADase is the enzyme. It's also called CD38 with polyphenol intake. And when we look at blue zones, we see polyphenols are elevated in their diets. So those are things like catechins from chocolate, EGCG from green tea,
blueberries,
blueberries, resveratrol from grapes and red wine, apigenin from parsley, fisetin from strawberries, quercetin from onions and apples, these kinds of
We're
things.
going back to the whole foods that you recommended.
Exactly, exactly.
You
So
know?
those
Yeah.
polyphenols are really powerful at inhibiting NAD breakdown.
Yeah.
So if you're getting plenty of niacin and you're getting plenty of these polyphenols, that's a good path. And then, as you were stating, a healthier lifestyle where you're avoiding alcohol,
Yeah.
avoiding a lack of sleep, where you're moving your body,
Gosh, we haven't even
etc.
talked about alcohol. That's one of the biggest no-nos, right?
Yeah, yeah,
We haven't even
exactly. But
started. Yeah.
all those unhealthy
Yeah.
things in your lifestyle are crushing
Yeah.
NAD levels, extra stress, etc. So,
Yeah,
yeah.
isn't it funny that people ask me what kind of NMN or NAD supplements I take, and yet they're chugging their margaritas daily or having their wine daily, and they don't understand that their body has the ability to make NAD if they would just let it make it through not using up the NAD through bad lifestyle choices. But there's nothing wrong with supplementing something that can. That's why it's called supplement. It's not called medicine or something. It's called supplement because you add it to what you should be doing anyways, which is what we talked for the past hour. Now, and by the way, berries and nuts and those should be the mainstay. I always have a bowl full of blackberries, blueberries, and strawberries, and almonds, and just seeds and stuff like that laying around. And one of the recommendations I always make my patients is like make things accessible to yourself, so you don't have to think about it. So it's right in front of you. Put it in your refrigerator on the middle shelf where you can see it and you remember to eat it. And it starts with when you go to the grocery store. The choices you make when you're in a grocery store affect your entire life. And that's where everything starts. And going aimlessly through aisles, you tend to pick up because they're smart. The way they put the stuff on the aisles, they know there's a whole science behind it. They know where to put what, so you pick it up. It goes back to chasing the dopamine and being brainwashed without actually knowing that it's happening. And so it starts there, but that's a whole nother topic. Now, I want to just to kind of close things out, we started with a more spiritual conversation, which I actually love. This is my favorite part because I like people that really think that deep and understand or have that self-awareness and can express it and educate. So I love that part. But I do want, since you're an expert in supplements, um, I'm gonna list the supplements that I'm taking. And by the way, I'm not a hypocrite. I don't even know if I would need take these supplements because I'm very disciplined and I can make a decision today and I follow through with it if I'm convinced that's good for me. And and so I'm doing all the things that we talked about as your non-negotiables already. But I also do take these supplements, and some of them are in combination. But just briefly, I want to go over them. When I get up in the morning, the first thing I do, I take. I have the NAD plus, which is a booster that contains basically vitamin C, niacin, which has vitamin B3, and has a bioenergy Reajev, which is a proprietary supplement that boosts ATP production at cellular level, and it basically supports mitochondria. And that's why it's an NAD booster. So I take that. I also take 1 gram of NMN. I don't know whether it helps or not. All I know is when I take these, I just feel more energized. I don't have a brain fog. I'm sharp. I don't get tired towards the end of the day. I'm not as moody. So I really gauge it by how I react to it. So I don't know whether it is has the same effects on other people. And then I take alpha lipoic acid because I want to keep my sugar level down, and also I believe in its anti-aging effects. And I take carnosine, and then I take my magnesium as citramalate. Um, and I just started a month ago taking Tongat Ali because, as we age, our sex binding hormones, they elevate. So we have less of free floating testosterone. So for men in their 50s, that's kind of like, I'm not sure. I will pick your brain on it, how that helps to increase and boost the testosterone. And then in the evening, I take with my meal, with my food, which is my main food. So I skip breakfast and I have late lunch. Usually it's just vegetarian, legumin, avocado, spinach, um, quinoa, and just make sure I get my proteins, maybe like a chicken breast, just to get my 30 gram of protein, especially when I exercise. And then in the evening, I have, like a steak or something. And with that fatty food or a salmon, I take my omega-3 in EPA and DHA form. And I take my vitamin D plus K, D3, K2 in a liquid form. It's kind of like in olive oil. It comes in olive oil. I also take ashwagandha, and that really is something that helped me a lot. And I want you to talk about it as well. And then what else do I take? And I take berberine. That's one of my favorites. I know it's one of your favorites. I take liposomal berberine. It's a compound that comes with red rice yeast, liposomal berberine, and coenzyme Q10. So those are the supplements that I take in the morning and in the evening. And between my meals, I don't have any snacks. I may have a coffee, but mainly I just drink electrolyted water, and that's it. No more snacking, no more sweets. And if I have any carbs, I get it from the nutrients that I get from my vegetables and from the fibers. And I may sometimes have a slice of sourdough with my avocado. That's kind of me cheating, but definitely nothing else. So if you want me to, if you have questions as to, I know I listed like 12, 13 things, but what do you think of that? And I want your honest opinion within the context of someone that exercises daily, does 80% resistance training and 20% cardio. And my work as a surgeon, I'm very active, so I burn a lot of calories, and I need to be sharp.
Yeah, your diet sounds super clean. I know you're getting enough water and you're getting the electrolytes. We talked about that. As far as the NAD boosting, that sounds pretty good to me. There may be some benefit to PQQ, CoQ10, and ubiquinol form. Maybe this MitoQ form is a little less data on it, but it is interesting. Maybe that NMNH may be better than NMN. We have to see. It's brand new. There's very little data. It's mostly animal data at this point. So that's hard to say. Alpha lipoic acid is great. You have to look at the form. The sodium form tends to be more stable.
Okay.
Otherwise, there is sometimes stability issues with alpha lipoic acid. Dihydroberberine is the form that I patented and I prefer over like just a standard berberine, but you are taking a liposomal one, so that's good. And then I think, the citrate malate is good. As far as magnesium, I really like the glycinate form quite a bit. Malate could be good for muscular issues. Citrate in particularly good for bowel movement. I think glycinate is probably one of my favorite just overall. Very cheap form, very reasonable form.
Well, I also take the L-threonate type at night.
Magtine.
Yeah, I take that at night.
I do like taking hydrolyzed collagen and whey protein
Hmm.
around a workout, or just getting an
I do
extra
that. Yeah.
bolus. Yeah, yeah, an extra bolus of protein
Yeah.
in.
Oh, I
And I
take that
think
also with creatine. I take
that's
about,
great.
I think 5 grams of creatine with my whey protein when I work out.
Yeah, that's perfect. I'm a huge, huge fan of creatine, not
Oh, it
only for
makes,
supporting
yeah.
muscle, but also for supporting the
Yeah.
brain, supporting bone, eyes,
Yeah.
reproductive organs, etc. Um, it sounds like you're
Hmm.
on point as far as the uh,
Ashwagandha.
no, ashwagandha. I'm a fan of. As long as it's standardized to withanolides, like the KSM 66
Hmm.
or the Sensoril or Shodan forms of ashwagandha are good. You mentioned, was it horny goatweed? What was the one that you mentioned
Um,
for?
just red rice yeast.
No, for the
So,
sex hormone binding
oh,
globule.
it's Tangat Ali.
Oh, Tongkat Ali, yeah. So,
Yeah, what's your take on that? I'm curious because there are some studies that show that increases the free
mhm,
testosterone.
yeah. Yeah, it does. It does seem to do that. Again, you have to look for like more of a standardized one. I think in
Mm,
particular, I think there's a lot of probably 85% of them are not that good on the market.
hmm.
But I think with ones that are standardized, if taken as the studies dictate, that you can get around a 30% increase in
That's pretty
testosterone.
significant. Yeah.
Yeah, through that inhibition of sex hormone binding globulin and kind of preventing the free testosterone from being bound
Yeah.
up. Zinc actually also supports that as well. So,
Mm.
that's an important one too.
I think one of the formulations I take has zinc in it. I don't know which one it is. I think it's my NAD booster that also has zinc in it. But um, as far as monitoring it, every 3 to 4 months, I take my blood biomarkers and I actually measure my HSCRP, my cortisol level, my vitamin D through because I want to know how I'm
Yeah,
doing my testosterone level, actually free testosterone level with sex binding globulin level, because that's important because just a total testosterone doesn't mean anything if you don't know
yeah,
how much free testosterone there is. So I think the one thing recommendations that I would make that I make to my patients is what I do myself is there is no point in just taking supplements pointlessly if you don't know where you started off and where you're going. And
yeah,
I think that's the mistake most people do make, that they just say, hey, what supplements do you take? And they just want to take what you're taking, not realizing that it really depends on your age, on your diet, exercise level, on your blood biomarkers. And based on that, you should be making adjustments. And it's not one size fits all. Can you quickly, just to wrap things up for the audience, to comment on it? Because there's so much confusion. I mean, people are looking at this as one size fits all. And how can someone kind of start?
yeah. It's a great point
It's
that
basically
we need.
biohacking. I would call it biohacking for beginners.
Yeah, you need to. One of the entrepreneurs I used to work with that I built the supplement company with, BioTrust, that you mentioned, he used to have a saying that test before you invest. And it's really the same here. You want to make sure you know what, one, your baseline is. That's the only way to do a scientific experiment. And then two, after you've had some kind of experimental intervention, you need to retest and see whether it's working or not. So that's really an important part of this is, making sure that you're getting the testing so that you're not wasting your money on these supplements. You need to make sure that you actually need them. And of course, it matters that you're getting a quality supplement as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's what we do for our patients. We basically uh, look at the lab results. We take history of their um, activity level and their diet. And because without that, I feel I can't make any recommendations. It would be just like, shooting in the dark. And I think, even though most of these supplements are very cheap, it would waste your money if you don't do the first 5 things that you need to do that come before taking supplements. Final takeaway, Shawn. Is there one key message you want listeners to take away about the role of supplements in health and longevity? And what would that be?
That supplements are becoming absolutely critical to one achieving optimized health. If you want to truly optimize and get to your best and most resilient, brilliant self, supplements are going to be a part of that. And absolutely, you need to do all these other things. You need to hydrate, get sleep, eat properly. You need to lift heavy things. You need to move your body. You need to surround yourself with the right people. These are all pieces of the energy formula in my book. But adding in supplements is going to be key to achieving that truly optimized level. Because again, we're getting bombarded with all kinds of physical and mental stresses, with EMF, with toxic chemicals, with leached soils, with poor quality food, and microplastics, and the list is very long, to where we can't compare to even 30 years ago, let alone 100 years ago or 1,000 years ago. Things are very different now, and I think supplements are a core piece of us living our best life.
I love this. Shawn, thank you. I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. And and thanks for educating us and giving us a more spiritual and practical approach to how one can change and turn around their life, literally starting today. And for those of you who have not read his book called The Energy Formula, please make sure you pick it up. I'm getting goosebumps just talking about this, because I read it thinking, having total different expectations, and when I finished reading it, the spiritual approach, the practical approach that it gave me towards this whole conversation was so refreshing, and it really was convincing. And so I think for people, your book would be a great start, just to understand the why. Most often we forget the why, and unless you don't know why you're doing something, you might do it for a couple of weeks or maybe months at best, and then you will give it up. You won't be able to sustain it long term because you don't have a why. And that book in particular talks about the why and how it can change your life. It's not just diet and exercise and supplement. It's just a healthier you. And so thank you for your contribution. I will definitely have you. I hope you will come back on this podcast, and because I hadn't really recognized your spiritual mind by researching you, and so I'm glad that this is going to come out now. Obviously, I haven't looked in deep enough, but I really appreciate our conversation, and I can't wait for further contributions. And hopefully, one day we get to meet. And until then, if you guys want to get in touch with Shawn, how can they get in touch with you? I know your Instagram handle is @ShawnWells, but any preferred method for people to get in touch with you?
Yeah, that's @ShawnWells, ShawnWells, and then energyformula.com if you want to see anything on the book with the Audible, the ebook, the hardcover, the soft cover. You can find it there, along with a bunch of downloadable extras.
I definitely recommend the audiobook. I love audiobooks, but your voice, your tonality, and it was just the message came across differently than if I would probably have read it myself, and was very soothing and calming voice, and it was right in tune with what was written in your book. So I love that. So I'd recommend the audiobook. Shawn, thank you so much. An honor.
All right, thank you.
All right, everyone, episode's over. I hope you enjoyed my conversation with the one and only Shawn Wells. And if you like this episode, please don't forget to leave me a review on Apple iTunes or comments on Spotify. And until next time.